Hey there, welcome to Synth Seeker. My name is Luke. Today we are continuing and doing another one synth video. Today we're going to look at the Moog Minitaur. And this is a bass synthesizer. So some things we're not going to do. We're not going to be doing, high-pitched leads on this thing. But we're going to walk through and do some of the sort of more common bass sounds that I like to do on the Minitaur. I've got a video out there that people like that's called like 4 presets for the Minitaur. If you're looking for something more like just show me some more sounds it can do, you can go watch that video. But what I'm going to do here is mostly just use the panel to what I do with all these videos. I'm going to just use the panel and basically dial in some sounds that I like. The Minitaur has a fairly extensive number of sort of shift functions. You hold down this glide button and then the knobs do alternative things. I'll use some of those, but mostly I just work on the panel with the things we can see directly. Someone does make, or a few different people make, if you pull all the knobs off, an overlay for the panel that adds documentation for like what all the shift functions are. And then there's a VST sort of inline editor for it that works pretty well. But here we go, some basic sounds. So I'm running this into Ableton. You can see in the background, Ableton's providing some delay and reverb. Let me turn off the delay and reverb here. Here it is with the filter all the way open. Again, this is not a demo, but there's 2 oscillators. They can do saws or squares or pulses. We're only listening to oscillator 1. That's the sort of pulse wave. The resonance, it's a Moog ladder filter, right? But the Minitaur's filter topology is slightly different than, say, the Mini Moogs, I believe. You'll have to look it up. I think it's a little bit more shrieky than the Mini Moog's filter. There we go. Sorry, I had some LFO modulating that, so here it is. So it is what it is. This synth will not play above, I think it's C4. So this is a C. That's, I think, the highest note it'll play. Yeah. So what it does is, if you play higher than, I believe it's C4, I might have the actual letter wrong, but it's one of the C's, C3, C4, C5. I think that's C4. If you play above that, when you play above that, it wraps it around an octave down. Okay, and that's actually useful. What it originally did when it first came out is it just ceilinged out at C4 or C5, whatever it is. And any notes, if you played like a D above that, it just played C, which introduced like some problems, harmonically, obviously. So what they introduced in a later firmware is that it wraps it around an octave. So if you run up above that, it just wraps it around below, and harmonically it still works. So it's, if you're doing, arpeggiations and you crank the octave knob so it's doing 6 octaves of arpeggiation is being sent to it, it still sounds good because it just wraps around and brings the high notes that it can't play an octave down to play it lower. But let's bring us down an octave. Let's bring in a little filter. So for Berlin School, I like this makes great plucks and great drones. So let's make a little sort of bass pluck here. Let's bring in the second oscillator. Let's leave them both as saws right now. We can detune oscillator 2. Bring the sustain all the way up. We're about halfway up. One thing you can do with the Minitaur, this was, I think, the first Moog synth of the new breed in, let's say, the last 10 years or so. Once in this, around the time the Minitaur was released, I think the subs had it. I don't know if the little fatties had it. They might have had it as well, the sub fatties. You could change the beat frequency offset between the two oscillators. It's like hold down shift and turn this, and you can detune it. So let me see. Right, so if you like that sort of Hoover-esque, heading towards Hoover territory, you can do that, which I'm not actually a fan of. I like them to be pretty close, and then I will manually detune a second oscillator if I want that behavior. Let's turn our delay and reverb on so we get a little bit of something here. Right, so we've got our dotted eighth delay on there. If we play eighth notes, we'll do our duckas. Right? Hang on a second. Right, so your basic Berlin baritone-esque sort of pluck, so you could do. Let's bring it up a little bit. All right, so let's record a little bass here. We'll do a little higher arpeggiator, sort of. Bring it down. All right, let's record a little something here. Let's hear that. I think I've got work chord quantization on. I do. print that, and we'll play with the envelope amount knob as we're printing here. All right, let's see how that turned out. Yeah, that works. So let's change the patch around. We'll put a little drone under it, sort of a sub. All right, so we'll pause that. We'll move over and let's make a little drone underneath it. So we will add our sustain back in. And we'll bring this down. And we'll drop oscillator to an octave again. There you go. So we're getting in this territory of like the Taurus pedal, right? And it doesn't, what is it? You can, it's not hard to replicate, right? You don't need necessarily a Taurus family Moog synth. I mean, Behringer makes a clone, I think now. I don't know if it's out, but essentially 2 oscillators way down, slightly detuned. So the question is, do I want it to be sort of beating with the detune, or do I want it to be sort of flat? This is pretty flat. I think the classic Taurus sound for a lot of people is, for the sustained ones, for drone stuff, tends to be more beaty. But if you're talking about like the Taurus pedals, like in a prog rock sense, like Geddy Lee playing, you know, Taurus pedals, that's less of a hoovery, beady kind of sound, more of a straight one. We'll save the resonant stuff for the third layer. What happens if we put a drone under this? So let's just listen to it. Actually be too low. Let's do this. Let's introduce a little sync. All right, so it'll do hard sync. It's hidden behind the one of the shift functions, right? But if we go, let's do this. You know, we'll save hard sync. We'll do that on the third one. Let's use this. Not too subby. Record something. Let's just get something down. So we're doing a sort of sub drone. All right, I didn't like one of those notes. Oh, you know what it is? I want to be in minor. But my layout is Dorian and I wasn't paying attention. So let's do this. There we go. So this here. Just do a quick tweak here of that note. That was outside my scale. That'll do. Let me print that real quick. All right, got a little manual modulation of the filter frequency in there. Add a little too much reverb for fun. All right, now let's make a pluck that's using some of the sync. So actually, if we're going to sync, I need to turn on sync, which is shift VCO2 level, I think. There we go. So now if I change the pitch of VCO2 while I'm playing, we should get that classic hard sync sound. Bring it up an octave. And we will. So we can use the LFO to play with the VCO, but we only want it to modulate VCO2, which I think is another shift function. We have to shift and turn this past halfway. And now the LFO. Slow it down. Yeah, just too much depth. So one of the things, if there's a dance between, so LFO is bipolar. So it's going from 0 up to its maximum and then back and then down to negative its maximum. So it's doing this back and forth thing. And how broad that is based on this dial, LFO amount to VCO2 in this case. And then the frequency is where the midpoint is, right? So I want it to be narrow enough that I don't fall off the ends, right? And then it stops you, like you lose the sound of the sync modulation because it's to basically hit max and just sitting there, or hit min and just sitting there. And so you want to constrain it with the amount knob, set the speed, and then set the midpoint using the VCO2 frequency knob. And it's easier to do when your LFO's moving quickly. Yeah, it's still pegging a little bit. All right, and our glide rate's a little high. There we go. So we get that sync sound on the glides as well. And that's our highest note right there. Let's bring our delay way up. And let's change our delay so it's, we'll do quarter note instead of dotted eighth. Or just, yeah, I'll do quarter note delay. Let's record something there. Let's put a beat behind it too. And I kind of like it faster. Let's turn it up a little bit. Okay, let's bring the levels down on the other so I can actually hear what's going on a little bit. I've got my drums pegged. All right. Let's record something. We'll just jam a bit and then we'll record a little MIDI and then get something in there. There's a little jam. Mixing is going to be a challenge. So I'm probably not going to achieve a great mix in this video, right? Because everything's thick and, you know, very timbre rich, right? So I don't necessarily using the Minitaur as a one synth thing without doing a serious amount of EQ carving that I'm just not going to get into here, but we'll see where we go. Oh, looks like I'm getting perfect timing. So I've got an audio interface that's giving me trouble, and it flakes out periodically. It might be maybe a thermal issue. But for now, I think we're good. I think we've achieved enough to sort of demonstrate the Minitaur's abilities in the one synth space. So check it out, super fun. Or one of the Minitaur variants, you know, Minitaur. I really don't know what the Behringer one is called, but you know, that one, or, you know, build your own. There's a bunch of VST equivalents. Marianas from Moog, and everybody, I think everybody has some sort of Minitaur-like behavior. Anyway, thanks for spending time with me here at Synth Seeker. Have a great week. See ya.